July 5, 1969. Hyde Park, London. 90,000 people watched in horror as Mick Jagger collapsed on stage. The elderly woman who'd rushed past security stood over him, holding something that made his hands shake violently. A birth certificate that shouldn't exist. "You need to see this before it's too late," she said into the microphone, her voice echoing across the massive crowd. "Your father isn't dead, Michael. He never was." The Rolling Stones had just launched into "Sympathy for the Devil" when security first noticed her. A woman in her 70s, moving faster than should be possible, weaving through the barriers like she was 20. 3 guards tried to stop her. All 3 ended up on the ground, but nobody expected what she would reveal next. Mick had been mid-verse when he saw her climbing onto the stage. At first, he kept singing, thinking security would handle it. Hyde Park had attracted all kinds of people. This was the Stones' biggest free concert ever, their tribute to Brian Jones, who died just 2 days earlier. The crowd was emotional, unpredictable. Then he saw her face clearly under the stage lights. Martha Sheldon, his childhood nanny who disappeared the night his father supposedly died in 1954. She hadn't aged well, but those eyes, sharp blue like broken glass, were unmistakable. "Martha's dead. She has to be dead. Father said she killed herself after the accident." Michael Philip Jagger, Martha announced, grabbing a microphone from the stunned backup singer. Born April 23, 1943. Father, Basil Fanshawe Jagger. Status, deceased January 15, 1954. Cause of death, train accident. Body, never recovered. The music stopped. Keith Richards stood frozen, his guitar hanging silent. Charlie Watts had dropped his drumsticks. 90,000 people held their breath as this elderly woman took control of the biggest concert in British history. "Except your father didn't die that night," Martha continued, pulling a yellow document from her coat. "He disappeared, and I helped him do it." The paper she held up caught in the wind, but the cameras broadcasting to BBC captured it clearly. A birth certificate, but not Mick's. What the certificate revealed sent shockwaves through the crowd. David Michael Jagger, Martha read aloud. Born April 23, 1943. Same day, same hospital, same time. Your twin brother, Michael. The one your father took with him when he vanished. Mick's legs gave out. He dropped to his knees on the wooden stage, his mind reeling. Twin brother. The room spun as memories flooded back, moments that suddenly made sense. His mother's tears whenever she looked at photo albums. The extra bedroom they kept locked. The way people in Dartford sometimes called him David by mistake, then looked terrified. "Where is he?" Mick managed to whisper, but the microphone caught it, sending his broken voice across Hyde Park. Martha walked closer, her weathered face showing no emotion. "That's why I'm here. David is dying. Cancer, spread everywhere. He has maybe 48 hours. And his final wish is to meet the brother who got to live the life that should have been shared." Keith grabbed a microphone. "This is insane. Get her off." Room 37, St. Mary's Hospital, Paddington, Martha interrupted. "If you don't believe me, ask him about the scar. The one on his left shoulder that matches yours exactly. From when you fell off the garden wall together, age 4. Mick's hand involuntarily went to his shoulder. The scar he'd never been able to explain. His parents had always been vague about how he got it. But the real bombshell was still coming. "Your father didn't just take David," Martha said, now addressing the massive crowd as much as Mick. "He took everything. The family money, your mother's jewelry, even the record collection that started your love of music. But he made one mistake. He left you behind because you were sick that night. Too sick to travel." The BBC cameras zoomed in on Mick's face, pale, shocked, tears streaming down. This wasn't performance. This was a man's entire life story crumbling in real time. "David knows all your songs," Martha continued. "He's followed your career from the shadows. That's the cruelest part. He became a musician too, playing dirty clubs in Paris under assumed names, always wondering what would have happened if Basil had grabbed the other twin that night." "You're lying," Mick said, but his voice held no conviction. Martha pulled out another item, a photograph. Even from a distance, the crowd could see it on the massive screen set up around the park. 2 identical babies in a crib, wearing matching christening gowns. The photo Mick had found hidden in his mother's things after she died, the one she'd cried over without explaining. "St. Mary's Hospital," Martha repeated. "Room 37. You have 48 hours to meet your brother. After that, the only Jagger twin left will be the one who got lucky." What happened next stunned even the most devoted fans. Mick stood up slowly, wiping his face. He looked at Keith, then at the crowd, then back at Martha. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice shaky but determined, "I'm sorry, but I have to go. I have to know if this is true." The crowd erupted. Some screamed in disappointment, others in support. But Mick was already walking off stage, Martha beside him. The greatest free concert in rock history, meant to honor Brian Jones, abandoned after just 4 songs. "Mick, you can't just leave," Keith shouted. But Mick turned back one last time. "If you had a brother you never knew about, and he was dying, what would you do?" The cameras followed him to the edge of the stage, where he stopped and addressed the crowd one more time. "If she's telling the truth, my whole life has been a lie. I need to find out. Please understand." Then Michael Philip Jagger, rock's greatest showman, walked away from 90,000 fans to chase a ghost story told by an old woman. The hospital encounter would change everything. St. Mary's Hospital was in chaos when Mick arrived. Word had already spread, nurses were calling friends, patients were crowding the hallways. But Mick saw none of it. His eyes were fixed on the room numbers, 34, 35, 36. Room 37's door was closed. Through the small window, Mick could see a figure in the bed, turned away. The build was right. The hair, though gray and thin, had the same wave pattern. "He's been waiting since he saw you on TV in '64, Martha said softly. Said he knew then that Basil had chosen wrong. You were meant for the spotlight. David was meant for shadows." Mick pushed open the door. The figure turned slowly, and Mick found himself looking at his own face, gaunt, dying, but unmistakably his. Same eyes, same bone structure, same crooked smile that had charmed millions. "Hello, Michael," David said, his voice weak but carrying the same Dartford accent Mick had worked so hard to hide. "Took you long enough." For 5 minutes, neither twin spoke. They just stared, cataloging the similarities and differences. David was thinner, marked by hard living, but the resemblance was undeniable. "Show me the scar," Mick finally said. David smiled sadly and pulled down his hospital gown. There it was, identical to Mick's, in the exact same spot. "We were 4, David said, racing to see who could climb the wall faster. We fell together, landed together, cried together. Mother used to say we did everything in sync. Why didn't she tell me?" Mick's voice cracked. "Because father threatened to kill us both if she did. He needed to disappear completely, gambling debts to the wrong people. Taking one son was insurance. Leaving one was mercy, I suppose." The truth about their father shocked even Martha. "He's still alive," David revealed, causing Mick to stagger backward. "Living in Argentina under another name. Watches every Stones concert on satellite. He's quite proud of you, actually. Says you got the talent from his side. He's alive." Mick could barely process it. All these years, mourning a man who chose his own survival over his family. David's voice turned bitter. "He remarried, had more children. I have half-siblings who don't know I exist. Just like you didn't know about me." David reached under his pillow and pulled out a worn envelope. "He gave me this to give to you if we ever met. Said it explains everything." Mick's hands shook as he took the letter. His father's handwriting, unchanged after 15 years. "Read it after I'm gone," David said. "I don't want to see your face when you learn the rest." "The rest?" David closed his eyes. "Why he really chose you to leave behind. It wasn't because you were sick, Michael. It's much worse than that." But before Mick could ask, David had a seizure. Doctors rushed in, pushing Mick aside. The heart monitor screamed its alarm as David's body convulsed. "Please," David gasped between convulsions, grabbing Mick's hand. "The music box. In my flat, Pemberton Road. Get it. You'll understand everything." Those were David Michael Jagger's last words. He died at 7:47 p.m. on July 5, 1969, holding his twin brother's hand for the first and last time. The music box would reveal the darkest family secret. 3 days later, after a private funeral attended only by Mick and Martha, they went to David's flat. It was small, cramped, filled with music equipment and Stones memorabilia. Pictures of Mick covered one entire wall. Magazine clippings, concert photos, newspaper articles. A shrine to the life David might have lived. The music box sat on the mantel, Swiss-made, ancient, playing a melody Mick recognized but couldn't place. Inside, they found 3 things: a key, a photograph, and a second letter. The photograph showed their parents with another man Mick didn't recognize. All 3 were smiling, holding what appeared to be legal documents. The date on the back, January 10, 1954, 5 days before his father died. The letter was from their mother, dated the day before she died. "My dearest Michael, if you're reading this, you found David and learned the truth. But not all of it. The man you called father wasn't your biological parent. Neither of you were his. Your real father was James Thornton, my sister's husband. The affair destroyed 2 families. Basil agreed to raise you both as his own, but when his debts caught up, he used the truth as leverage. He took David because David looked less like James. You were always James's spitting image. Leaving you behind was his final act of cruelty, making sure I'd see my shame every day in your face. The key opens a safety deposit box at Barclays, Dartford branch. Box 1247. Inside is your real inheritance, from James, who died last year and left everything to his biological sons. He always knew, you see, he just couldn't claim you. I'm sorry, Michael, I'm so very sorry. Mick sank to the floor, the letters scattered around him. His entire identity, everything he thought he knew, was a lie built on lies. The safety deposit box contained more than money. 2 weeks later, Mick stood in Barclays Bank, key in hand. Box 1247 was larger than standard, requiring 2 bank officers to remove it. Inside, £50,000 in cash, deeds to properties, and another collection of documents that would explain why Mick became who he became. James Thornton had been a session musician. The papers included contracts, recording agreements, and a journal documenting every performance. He'd played on some of the early blues records that had inspired Mick. Chuck Berry, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf. James had backed them all during their UK tours. He used to watch you, a note in James's handwriting explained. Stood outside your school, your home, the youth club where you first sang. I knew you'd inherited it, the need to perform, the way music lived in your bones. I couldn't give you my name, but I gave you my gift. At the bottom of the box, a harmonica. The one Mick had found in his Christmas stocking when he was 8, the one that started everything. His mother had said it was from Father Christmas. Another lie protecting another truth. But the final document was what broke Mick completely. A medical report from 1943, stating that the twins' birth had complications. One twin, David, had suffered oxygen deprivation, mild brain damage that would affect his ability to process complex emotions. Basil had known. He'd taken the damaged twin and left the perfect one. The revelation sent Mick into the darkest period of his life. The Stones cancelled their summer tour. The official reason was exhaustion, but the truth was Mick had disappeared. He spent months in seclusion, grappling with the implosion of his identity. Keith found him one night in December, drunk in a Paris bar where David used to play. You can't bring him back by destroying yourself, Keith said. I stole his life, Mick slurred. Every song, every stage, every scream from every fan, it should have been shared. But it wasn't. And that's not your fault. Mick pulled out the harmonica James had left. Know what the worst part is? I'm good because of genes from a man I never met, raised by a man who wasn't my father, mourning a twin I never knew existed. Who the fuck am I, Keith? Keith's answer changed Mick's perspective forever. You're the bloke who stopped the biggest concert of his career to meet a dying brother. You're the one who paid for his funeral, who's been sending money to Martha to make sure she's comfortable. You're the one turning this pain into the best bloody songs we've ever written. It was true. The material Mick had been writing was darker, deeper, more honest than anything before. Moonlight Mile, Wild Horses, Can't You Hear Me Knocking, all born from the summer he learned the truth. David wanted you to have this, Martha said during one of Mick's visits. She handed him a tape. He recorded it the week before he died, when he knew you'd eventually come. The tape contained David singing Stones songs. His voice was rougher, untrained, but the genetic similarity was eerie. The last track was an original, a song about watching your other half live the life you dreamed of. I'm not angry, David's recorded voice said after the song ended. I need you to know that. We were both victims of adults' choices. But you took the gift and made it matter. That's all any of us can do. The healing began with a pilgrimage. In 1970, Mick tracked down Basil in Buenos Aires. The man who'd haunted his dreams was smaller than memory, older, diminished. They met in a cafe, two strangers who'd once been father and son. I did what I had to do, Basil said, not meeting Mick's eyes. You'll never understand the pressure I was under. I understand you took David from his mother and me from my brother. And look how well you turned out. Basil gestured at Mick's expensive clothes. Would you be a Rolling Stone if you'd grown up with the truth? Mick left without another word. But he'd gotten what he came for, the realization that Basil's approval, which he'd unconsciously sought his whole life, meant nothing. Back in London, he visited James Thornton's grave for the first time. A simple headstone, musician, father, keeper of secrets. I wish I'd known you, Mick said to the stone, but I hear you every time I play. The transformation was complete. The Mick Jagger who'd collapsed on stage at Hyde Park was gone. In his place stood someone who understood that identity isn't about blood or names or family lies. It's about what you do with the truth once you find it. The Stones' next album, Sticky Fingers, would be their masterpiece, every track infused with the pain and power of Mick's journey. The cover, a simple zipper, represented opening up what's hidden inside. Critics called it their artistic peak. Mick called it David's album. Today, few people remember the Hyde Park incident. It's been overshadowed by decades of hits and scandals. But Mick keeps 3 photos in his wallet, the twins in their crib, David in his hospital bed, and James holding his harmonica. 3 men who made him who he is, the brother who showed him what could have been, the father who gave him the gift, and the ghost who taught him that sometimes the family you choose is more real than the family you're born into. Every July 5th, Mick visits David's grave. He plays harmonica, old blues songs James might have backed. Sometimes Martha joins him, the last keeper of the family secrets. "Do you regret finding out?" she asked once. "No," Mick said. "The truth broke me, but it also set me free. David gave me that. In 48 hours, he gave me more truth than I'd had in 26 years. The gravestone reads, David Michael Jagger, musician, brother, the shadow who found the light. And somewhere in Argentina, an old man watches his son perform on satellite TV, knowing he gave up the right to call him son the night he chose to run. The music plays on, the truth echoes in every note, and Michael Philip Jagger, who is really someone else entirely, continues to prove that sometimes the greatest performances come from the deepest pain. Because rock and roll was never about perfection, it was about turning your broken pieces into something beautiful. And nobody did that better than the man who discovered his whole life was a lie in front of 90,000 witnesses. The show, eventually, went on. It always does. But it was never the same. And that's exactly how it should be.